to start off with some numbers that you may be familiar with. This is from the GRIT report produced by Green Book. And this is the current adoption of neuromarketing techniques. I use that term kind of loosely within the industry overall. This is the amount of people, the percentage of companies who say they are currently in use of neuromarketing techniques. You can see we've kind of plateaued. We haven't crossed the chasm from early adoption to the early majority, but we're almost there. If we cross 16%, we'll be in the early majority, and from a new product adoption perspective, we should really take off then. But we've been at that stage for quite some time, and when I present these kinds of talks and Lenny is listening, he usually asks this kind of question. When are we going to see broad-scale adoption of non-conscious impact techniques, and what is it going to take to get there? At Sentient, we think there's 3 keys to crossing the chasm with non-conscious measurement techniques. The first one is sound science. We have to practice science correctly now so that we're laying the right foundation for the industry. That includes doing non-conscious measurement correctly, but it also includes integrating conscious measures correctly. We have to actually stop disparaging conscious measures, because conscious measures are critical for understanding human behavior. A better position for us as an industry within the market research industry is about the appropriate integration of non-conscious and conscious measures together. The second thing that we need to do is market validation. We need to publish validation studies, and there's at least 2 kinds of validation that are particularly useful. One is providing evidence that we're giving deeper insight in the whys behind behavior, so adding to explanations, trying to understand consumer behavior. And the second one is evidence of how adding non-conscious measures increases our predictive accuracy in forecasting actual consumer behavior. If we can publish more studies that accomplish those 2 things, we'll achieve broader industry adoption. And the third one is we have to increase awareness of applications. Most people, when they think of consumer neuroscience, think of ad testing, copy testing, which is a great application. But the applications for non-conscious techniques are really vast. And we need to educate the industry on the ways in which we can actually use these techniques. Hopefully you'll see all 3 of those here in today's presentation. So if that's our goal, what better place for us to start than in the middle of the desert? Anybody know what that is? Everybody know what that is? That's the current trajectory of traditional market research, right? I said don't disparage conscious measures. That's the opening scene from Breaking Bad, right? How many people are currently watching Breaking Bad? I'll try not to do any spoilers here. Anybody who has watched Breaking Bad? All right, perfect example. That story about the transformation of Walter White to Heisenberg, chemistry teacher, to meth cook and drug lord, carried 5 seasons, 100 hours of story. It won over 100 awards. It had 10 million plus viewers of its final episode. Why was this story so compelling? It's really about the behavioral transformation and the power of the sense of self to transform behavior in extreme circumstances. You remember Walter in the beginning? Again, no spoilers, but you see his gradual transformation into Heisenberg. and his expression of elements of his core sense of self that had been left unexpressed for 50 years of his life. This one has a little profanity in it, so you might want to close your ears.
Now, say my name. Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
You feel that conviction? That's his sense of self. It's so interesting to study the extremes of behavior, and we do this in psychology because studying the extremes of behavior gives us insight on what's driving behavior within the norms. And that sense of self is a behavioral transformation mechanism. It regulates our behavior. Robert McKee, who's a very well-known figure within the story screenwriting space, requires everybody who comes to his TV story seminar to watch all 62 episodes of Breaking Bad before they come. Is this just entertainment? Is this just for our kind of fun? We're going to argue that the core sense of self is more fundamental to human and consumer behavior than you may have previously thought. One of the streams of research at the Sentient Consumer Subconscious Research Lab is understanding the nature of the sense of self and how it actually applies to consumer behavior. And the psychological literature, the behavioral science literature on the sense of self is really rich. And we tap into that literature to find new insights on how these principles may apply to consumers. The last one there is Bad is Stronger Than Good by Reid Baumeister, one of the best authors on self-regulation. If we understand the sense of self as it relates to humans, is this relevant to us as marketers? At Sentient, we find that people who self-identify with your brand exhibit behaviors that are very meaningful for your business. For example, people who highly self-identify with a beauty brand are willing to pay 50% more for that beauty brand versus competing beauty brands. We find that people who highly self-identify with a healthcare brand are willing to drive 20 minutes across town to get that brand. And people are 3 times more likely to visit a restaurant brand if they highly self-identify with that brand at an implicit level. Those are behavioral outcomes that are very meaningful to us as businesses. So one way in which we can illustrate the power of the sense of self and its importance in driving consumer behavior is to do some research on research. And that's one of the things we'd like to do at Sentient. We're going to share with you today a study that we did on the Super Bowl where we measured the implicit impact of all 61 national ads on 50 different brands from this past year. The brands that we measured were brands that you know: Microsoft, Always, Esurance, Pepsi, Coke, Disney, the NFL. There were over 3,000 consumers in this study, and we captured nearly 600,000 measures of System 1 processing. The key to this is that we didn't measure implicit reaction to the ad itself. We measured the change in implicit attitude toward the brand or product that was featured in the ad. And that's a key to applying implicit association techniques properly to ad testing. Weight Watchers is one that you're going to see in a second. You may all recognize this particular ad from the Super Bowl.
Hi, Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
My hair.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aw.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
This is a powerful ad. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's got a really nice peak, and there's a change. You can feel the change in the music. It takes you on a different emotional journey in the second half. It was controversial. It actually didn't resonate with everyone. here is the data, the behavioral data, right after the Super Bowl, following the Super Bowl, on online behavior toward this ad. This is data from iSpot TV, which collects behavioral data relative to ads. It had 1.5 million online plays. It had 632,000 social actions, like shares. And it captured 11% of what iSpot TV calls digital share of voice. This was very successful from an online behavior perspective, but it wasn't driven by everybody who saw the ad. It was driven by people who had an implicit sense of self-connection with the Always brand. We measured the implicit emotional association with the Always brand following exposure to that ad, and the Sentient Prime implicit index score was 104. Now the mean on that scale is 100. So among everybody, this has just a little bit of emotional resonance. But when you measure it among people who self-identify with the brand, you get a significant boost in the implicit emotional impact of that ad. The Sentient Prime implicit index score goes up to 113. What if that score was predictive of the online behavior? What if we measured the emotional associations of people who connected at an implicit level with our brand to their sense of self? If we measured that, could we forecast the potential success of an ad? We're going to show you that you can. Here's another ad from the Super Bowl. There's a lot going on in the subtext of this particular ad. See if you can tell who the narrator is of this ad.
Hey, wanna get baked? You know, glazed, iced, fried. How much do you want? Just have a taste. Cooked it up special for you. And guess what? If you buy more, I'll cut you a deal. No one's telling you what to do. You're in control. You can stop whenever you want. Well, sorta. I mean, you gotta eat, right?
How many people know who that narrator is? Yeah, it's Aaron Paul. Yeah, Jesse from Breaking Bad. And what's he doing there? He's talking about food addiction, right? It's powerful. The Sentient Prime implicit index score, 107 for everybody. You would think, that's not that great. Look at what the emotional association was with the Weight Watchers brand following exposure to that ad among people who self-identify with Weight Watchers. 128. This ad connected at a core level with the people whom it was trying to connect with. Those people who self-identify with the Weight Watchers brand. So once we've collected all that data and we look at the impact of exposure to an ad compared to a control, no exposure to an ad, we're able to then, across all of the ads, correlate the implicit lift to the online social behaviors to see how well these measures actually predict some behavior of interest. This is a best practice in validation. You don't want to validate implicit measures by comparing them to conscious measures. What does that tell you? Do you expect them to correlate? Do you not expect them to correlate? Could go either way. But if you're correlating them to some behavior of interest, now you know you've got real validation. In this case, we're using online sharing behavior as our behavior of interest. But you might use sales, you might use retention rates, depending on what your business question is. You might, if you want more information on this, go to bit.ly implicit ad testing, and you'll see a review and critique of the application of neurophysiological measures to ad testing on our blog. So here are the results. We've got all of the behavioral data from the ads from iSpot TV, and we wanted to compare the implicit measures to conscious measures in an additive way. So we also have a really nice conscious measure that's collected game day, which is USA Today ad meter. Everybody know that? Yeah? Who won the Super Bowl ad contest? So if we do the correlation of these online behaviors, digital share of voice, with how much people like the ad using the USA Today ad meter, encouragingly for USA Today, the correlation is a 0.35. That's significant. There's actually a significant correlation on that 7-point Likert scale between how much people like an ad and its social sharing of that ad. In this study, we also included a response latency technique, which is called a fast explicit technique. It's a conscious measure, but it's actually a very good conscious measure. And we added that on top of the Likert scale from the USA Today to see, does it add any predictive utility? It does. And that's actually encouraging for those people who are actually using fast explicit techniques, as measures of conscious associations. It's additive to a Likert scale. That's good. But what happens if we add a true implicit emotional lift to this same model? The correlation goes up even higher. It's a 0.52. That's additive above and beyond the USA Today score, the FAST explicit score. Now we have a correlation of a 0.52 with real in-market behavior. But here's the punchline. If you measure the emotional lift among those people who self-identify implicitly with your brand, the correlation goes up to a 0.63. That's additive above the USA Today Likert scale and the FAST explicit measure. If we can capture the emotional association or reaction to an ad among those people who self-identify with our brands, we're in a much better position of predicting the success of our ads. Just in case you think this only applies to ad testing, I talked about awareness of applications. We see the same kinds of results when we're doing new product sales forecast. If you just look at the correlation of overall implicit combined with conjoint in predicting sales, you get a correlation of a 0.7. If you do it among people who implicitly self-identify with the brand that's launching a new product, the correlation goes up to a 0.96. That's forecasting actual sales behavior of products. We see it in new concept testing, understanding in your brand extension how the new concept resonates with the core brand attributes among those people who self-identify with your brand. This is an example from Doritos on the back end of Doritos Locos Taco. This was Doritos Loaded. It had 3 times the predicted run rate because we understood what the lovers of that brand really wanted in the brand extension. And it's also true for your brand tracking studies. Incorporating implicit self-identification into your brand tracking, measuring emotional associations with your brand, better correlates with actual brand performance and sales in the marketplace. I'll mention the 4th key very briefly. I mentioned the first 3 to start. The 4th key is scale. Obviously, Sentient Prime implicit association testing is globally scaled. There is a map, it's called whereissentientprime.com, where you can see everywhere in the world where we're currently measuring somebody's non-conscious associations with a brand, a product, a package, an ad. It's a live map. Every time somebody comes into the software, a little green button lights up on the map. This is a screenshot from that map. And come visit us there. This is easily integrated with online eye tracking and facial coding, as you just heard Jeff Bander from Sticky talk about, and we can incorporate those two into a seamless experience for what your tests are, what your testing needs are. And it's mobile. 30% of all data collected on Sentient Prime is on mobile devices, and we're seeing that number increase. This is critical for the future of market research. So where do we end? Essentially, consumers want you to say my name. And this is more than just about capitalizing on fundamental human nature. Really what this is, and what our jobs are providing meaningful identity markers for consumers who want to express something unique about their core values in an increasingly conspicuous consumption world that we live in. We have a responsibility to produce brands that are meaningful, that allow people to express their self-identity in unique ways. And if that's our responsibility, we have to make sure that our methods are the best methods for understanding and delivering that sense of self. I'll finish with one more video, which I think you'll probably find amusing.
Hi.
My doctor called in a prescription.
Yes.
You're not Greg.
I'm sort of Greg. We're both over 50 years old. We both used to own a Pontiac Aztec. We both have a lot of experience with drugs. Sorry, pharmaceuticals. So, say my name.
Sorta Greg.
Esurance helps make sure you only pay for what's right for you, not someone sorta like you. Esurance, backed by Allstate.
Fun. Overall, did okay. Among people who self-identify with that brand, 109. Not bad. We're teaching everybody how to do this. Any researcher in the world can have access to Sentient Prime to incorporate into your own implicit studies, client side, supplier side. The workshop is tomorrow at 466 Lexington Ave. Come spend 3 hours with us, and we'll teach you how to use the software. You'll walk away with your own study that you can share with your stakeholders and run on your own. Thank you.